Good morning, solo of the month. It is February 21st, 2026, and I'm so glad to be here with you today to work on this great piece of music, Veil of Mists, which was just written a few months ago, and we're kind of premiering it. We're the first people to have access to the music. It is out there for sale now. So in the chat, I'm including a link to the part of the practiceflute.com website that has the downloadable music. You can download Movement 3 for completely free for now, at least. Or you can buy the score. I think it's $3.20 plus tax, so $3.55 or 60 cents, depending on where you live. And also, you'll notice that I just put on there a little downloadable warm up for articulation, and that's completely free. So I'd encourage you to download that right now. So click the link and then scroll to where you see a black button that says probably downloadable or warm up or something along those lines. It says articulation warm up. So find that articulation warm up and let's go ahead and pull that up. So this Veil of Mists kind of goes back and forth depending on whether the mood is more uplifting or more reflective between G major and its relative minor E minor. This warm-up is focused around the E natural minor scale. So you'll notice the F sharp in the key signature and everything else is natural. In E minor, we oftentimes raise D sharps and sometimes C sharps, but we're going to leave everything natural for now except for that F sharp in the key signature. And a couple of months ago, we practiced double tonguing as a group, where we talked about using the two parts of the tongue as if we were saying tu and ku or ta and ka and a bunch of different varieties like that, depending on your mouth and your tongue and the comfort and the placement of that. So this exercise is going to help us feel better about double tonguing in 6/8. So the first exercise is that E natural minor scale, 2 octaves, with the rhythm 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. So notice in 6/8, the 8th note is 1, and the 16th note is the and. So 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we'll use the articulation 2, 2, ku, 2, 2, 2, ku, 2, etc. So let's just go up that scale together, nice and slow, and then we'll ask if anybody has any questions about that. 2, 2, ku, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so how did that feel? 2, 2, ku, 2. Are we thumbs up? Does anybody have any questions or comments? You can unmute yourself and ask it or type it into the chat. Looks like mostly thumbs up around the group, so excellent. We'll go ahead and move on then. And we're going to start applying double tonguing, yes, double tonguing, to other rhythms. So measures 9, 10, 11, 12 on this warm-up sheet. We're going to think tu ku, tu ku, tu ku, tu ku. So rather than think 1 triplet 2, 3 triplet 4, we're thinking 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 and. So 1 and 2, and then the dotted eighth is and 3 and. Then you notice 4 and 5, and the A dotted eighth note is and 6 and. So counting in 6/8, 1 and 2 and, 4 and 5 and, 1 and 2 and, 4 and 5 and. So it's taking that same E natural minor scale and just doing neighbor tones with this rhythm. Tu ku tu ku, tu ku tu ku. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we even have that tu ku rhythm at the end also. All right. Any questions or thoughts about that? Yes, we could triple tongue tu, but that changes the pulse just a little bit, and I'm wanting us to keep the double tonguing. So, how does double tonguing and having the ku be an emphasized syllable on that and feel? Still thumbs up? Awesome. Love seeing that. Love to know that. We'll go ahead and play the next couple of measures then, which is the reverse rhythm. 13 through 16, we have 1 and 3 and 4 and 6 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 6 and articulation will be 2, ku 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 2. So try saying that with me. 2, ku 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 2, etc. All right, so playing 13 through 16. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, before we move on, any questions, comments, or thoughts about using the double tonguing articulation with this rhythm?
The throat is much more relaxed that way.
You're feeling a more relaxed throat keeping with the double tonguing?
Yes, less like hairball.
Some people in passages where I would normally triple tongue, some people prefer the double tonguing, triple tonguing this way. Tuku tuku
Hmm.
tuku 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 tuku. Usually, depending on how I want to have emphasis in the music, I oftentimes like triple tonguing, but this does feel more balanced because you're using both parts of the tongue more equally then. So great. I'm
Hmm.
glad that you're feeling less of a hairball there, Deborah. Any other thoughts or comments about this uh, articulation application or this rhythm? All right, then we'll do the final warm up on this sheet 17 through 20. This is the E natural minor scale neighbor tone. E, D, E, fees, G, A, B, C, D, E, etc. And before we play it double tongued, I first want to play it slurred, just to make sure we are keeping our air column consistent. Remember when we did the double tonguing 101 as part of one of these group classes a couple of months ago, we talked about how we want to keep the air column consistent, and that's going to help the tongue float around. As one of my teachers, Don Gottlieb, once said, it's like the lubrication of engine pistons, which to me, as a flute player who does not know anything about machines, made no sense then, but makes a little bit of sense now that I'm a car owner. So taking 17 through 20 and doing it slurred. I know it's going to be so tempting to change the rhythm, but let's keep it in 6/8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slur. And then when we add the double tongue, we have options. So let's first do it once, and this isn't how I think we're going to apply it later. Let's emphasize the 2. So we'll have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and or tuka, tuka, tuka. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that emphasis for me very much helps with that very last clump of beats, 4 and 5 and 6. And we have that rhythm kind of show up maybe twice in this movement. So now, before I ask the questions around the gallery again, we're going to try to emphasize different ways. We're going to emphasize the new scale degree of each neighbor tone. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and that's the rhythmic emphasis. Tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka. And it's so tempting to change our feeling to tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka. But our metronome isn't just going to automatically change like that. So instead think tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka. Sorry, I should be snapping 3. Tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka tu ka ta ku ta ka. Let me do that a little slower because it's a little hard for the brain. And try doing it with me. So clap, snap, snap. We'll start with that. Which represents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try the double tongue. Tu ka ta ku ta ka 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 tu ka ta ku ta ka. And yes, I'm changing the vowel shape of that in my mouth. Tu, a more legato. Ka, ta, a more staccato. Ku, more legato. Ta, ka. So for me, articulation is not just function, but articulation is also one of our flute's expressive elements. And I'm going to use that to help emphasize on purpose now the E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, the scale that is the neighbor tone scale. So let's try it on the flute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So now that we've tried that a few different ways, are there any questions, thoughts, or comments from the gallery out there about what we just did, how it felt, why we did it, or anything along those lines? Just glancing around for any additional comments or thoughts. Everyone seems kind of satisfied with that. I hear someone
Dr.
unmute.
Matthew?
Yes, Dr. Deborah.
Um, it seems with the various, ways of tonguing and double tonguing, it really keeps your mind not so much on the tonguing. For me, I'm trying to focus more on the air because if I focus on like the actual tonguing, I kind of get a little stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think nonstop airflow, but it's wonderful to have all these different variations on this.
Yeah, and you're
Thank you.
absolutely right. Nonstop airflow is the key to having fluid double tonguing. One thing we need to remember, and we say this probably every month too, is air is fluid, and we need to keep that fluid continuously going, and then the tongue will just float around on that air. So as long as the air is there, the tongue has some freedom to move more freely. And then when we're using these different articulations, it's not to stop the air in the throat in any way. It's to interrupt the air slightly in the front of the mouth. So I use like a ku feeling instead of a k, like a hard k, which comes back much further. because in my mouth, when I first learned double tonguing, it was ta ka ta ka 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 ka, and I felt like the ka was closing off my throat. So to ku keeps it more forward in my mouth and allows me to keep all of that space for fluid to flow, air fluid, through the throat and my back of mouth even more open. So yes, Deborah, as we double tongue, we always need to focus on the air, and that's why I oftentimes recommend that whatever it is that you're double tonguing or triple tonguing, multiple tonguing, I guess we should say, um, also practice it slurred when you can apply that method. Because when you're slurring, you're having that more consistent air. And when you're double tonguing, you want to use the exact same air. So great statement there. Any other thoughts or questions about this little articulation warm up? I also wanted to point out in this warm up, if you look at measure 5, rhythmically we have the dotted eighth notes spread across that 12/8 measure. So rhythmically it's going to be the same as what we just counted. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And so now we're in 12. 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and you'll notice when I count to 12, I don't say 7, 2 syllables. Instead I say sev. I don't say 11, which is 2 syllables. 11, which is 3 syllables. I say lev to make it just 1 syllable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if you're not used to counting in 12, let's actually just take a moment and do that. I'm going to do a clap, snap, snap again, and let's just practice counting to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we can add the 16th notes, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and. Try that with me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and. So measure 5 rhythmically, I know that's a little scary. It's 1 and 4 and 7 and 10 and 1 and 4 and 7 and 10 and if you're practicing that, you can subdivide that with the same articulation that we just practiced. Let's try that. So we're going to have 3 tongues on each note because each dotted eighth note is worth 3/16 notes. And we're going to use the articulation we just practiced. Tu, ku, tu, ku, tu, ku, tu, ku, tu, ku, tu, ku, but applying it to measure 5. So I'm going to say 10, left, 12 for our start. 10, left. And now I'm going to make my double tonguing much more subtle, so it's going to start to sound in my ear a little bit more like what we're going to hear. 10, left, 12. And then as we get comfortable with that, then we have accurate rhythm. So this piece 12, the time signature 12/8 is what would be called a compound quadruple, meaning there's 4 main beats in the measure, and each of those main beats is broken up into 3 sub beats. So it's compound because it's got the 3. Measure 5 will feel like a simple quadruple where you have 4 main beats, but each of those main beats is broken into 2. So it'd be like counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in those measures. But it's not so easy for the mind to go back and forth like that, especially when the music doesn't show it that way. So feeling the 1 and 4 and 7 and etc. Is really useful for us. And then the articulation rhythms that we practice also get to apply to places like measures 7 and 8. And these measures I've noticed in my own demonstration that I posted last week, I rushed. And then in a lot of the videos that I've heard posted this week, I'm also noticing rushing. So hopefully I didn't influence the rush. If I did, I very much apologize. What's the saying? Follow not in the footsteps of the masters, but seek what they saw or whatever. So don't try to do what I do, but try to do the best that you can do. But in this case, those dotted quarter notes are going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and. And then in measure 7, the rest is 4 and 5. Then the run coming in is and 6 and. The dotted quarter note is 7, 8, 9. Then that little dotted eighth note rest is 10 and lev. And then the G, F sharp E is and 12 and. So we think 1, so I'm going to start in measure 6, but I'm going to start in measure 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4, 5. And I try to make some audible sniffs for the rest to hear the pulse is still, and I try to pulse the beats in there. So hopefully that makes those rhythms feel a lot more comfortable. I know that was one of the requests when I asked the group if there were things that they wanted to make sure that we covered. I don't know if the person who requested that rhythm, I don't know if you're in this meeting or not, but hopefully you'll have an opportunity to watch it, and hopefully that makes more sense. And then before we go around, well, actually, let's stop there and pause. So how does that feel to everybody rhythmically? Measures 5, 6, 7, and 8. No additional questions? That's fine. Now, just so it's not the Matthew show, would anybody be willing to play part of those first 10 or 20 measures, the first bit of it? Anybody give us a little demonstration?
Okay.
Nathan, awesome.
Okay.
Wonderful job, Nathan. How did that feel? Go ahead and leave yourself. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not really good at explaining this kind of topic, but I felt more confident, I would say, than the past. Yeah,
You felt more confident? Yeah, and your rhythm was really pretty close.
yeah.
We can do this with a metronome to make sure that we're aligning things, but it sounded like things
All
were
right.
pretty well understood. Measure 9, that very last one, and maybe because you were getting close to the end, that very last A
Mm-hmm.
followed by the dotted eighth note rest, that one was a little bit rushed compared to the other ones, but your rhythm was really solid, Nathan. Bravo. Really, really bravo.
Oh, thank you.
I think I saw a few claps go around from the room too. Deborah's giving you some snaps.
Mhm.
Great. So
Oh,
tell me
thank
something
you.
about your playing that you enjoyed just now. You said you felt more confident, but what else are you happy with?
Just hearing how you explain the counting, I never implemented that in my practicing before. I've seen you in the past with past videos with your students. You always count and stuff like that. Back in back in my junior high years, that's what you did a lot, and that's something I think I should start implementing, into my practicing.
Yeah, great. I think rhythm is an important thing for us to keep practicing. Uh, I like in learning anything to break things down into multiple parts and kind of look at those little
Mhm.
things, so take it apart just to put it back together, but have a better understanding. And so sometimes I like to say the note names, sometimes I like to count the rhythms. And counting rhythms is something that we did when we were kids, but one day it's just like our teacher, many of us are experienced, our
Mhm.
teachers just stopped. And they stopped when the rhythms started getting more complicated. And to me, that's when we should be practicing the rhythms even more. Because if we don't have comfort with the rhythmic qualities and the stability of the rhythm, then that's a part of us. The rhythmic part of us is never going to be feel comfortable playing the music. So if we break the music apart and focus on just that one aspect, the rhythm aspect, and get comfortable with that, that's going to be one more brick and a solid foundation of our playing. So your tone came through very nice and clear. Your note accuracy was good. I know you wanted to add an F sharp in there in one of those places that
Oh
as a
yeah.
third, but like you were playing really accurately. And maybe if you do it as a separate practice of counting and then playing another time or two,
Mhm.
you'll you'll be able to focus even less on rhythm while you're playing because it will already be more instinctual. That pattern will be more comfortably learned. So that was really wonderful. Any other
Oh,
thoughts,
thank you.
Nathan?
That pretty much covers it for now.
That covers it. Great. Well, again, thank you for demonstrating. Would anybody else like
My,
to play a bit of the opening? Not sure if there's any hands up or not. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so another request was to talk about the glissando effects that we have in measures 28 and 29. And in this case, I think we can do either diatonic or chromatic glissandos, but finger glissandi versus a facial pitch bend. In measure 28, we move from an E to a B. That one would make sense that we could do diatonically, play E, D, C, B. Sounds just fine. Or if you feel like having faster fingers, doing it chromatically. So playing all of the notes of the chromatic scale there would be the other option. So go ahead and just take a second, everyone around the room. Try doing it diatonically, playing E, D, C, B. And then try it chromatically E, E flat, D, D flat, C, B. And decide for yourself which one is going to make most sense. And then try it in context of the measure. With that in mind, though, measure 29, I am going to do a chromatic glissando because in 29 we're just moving a minor third from G to E. Diatonically, that's only adding one note. And to me, if the composer wanted us to play G, F sharp, E, he would have written G, F sharp, E. So I'm going to do chromatic there. So G, F sharp, F natural, E. Which is a little bit more challenging technically. So it might be worth going backwards to E, F, F sharp, G. And then maybe looping E, F, F sharp, G, F sharp, F, E, F, F sharp, G, F sharp, F, E. And yes, I do think the technique of trills and glissando and other effects is worth practicing. So many times a student will have a trill and they just kind of start flapping a finger around, or they'll have a glissando or some type of run and play, I don't know, between half to 2/3 of the notes in the glissando or in the run. Because the way it's notated as being smaller notation, sometimes a little Italian abbreviated word, cues to the brain that it's not as important as the rest of the notes on the page. And I think it is worth practicing because it is just as important as the rest of the notes on the page. So starting in measure 28, we have 1 and 4 and gliss here. Da-da, da-da, da, da, da. So let me zoom in measure 29. Those are dotted eighth notes. The gliss, the G of the gliss is on the dot, so it's hard to see that it's a dotted eighth note. So it's not 1, 2, but 1 and 4 and. So I don't know if everyone can see the dots in measure 29. They are very hard to see. But starting in measure 28, let's give it a try. 10, 11, 12. And nice slow tempo. Let's try it again. 28 and 29. 10, 11, 12. All right, so how do those gliss feel, and how does applying those gliss with the rhythm feel in measures 28 and 29? Any questions there? Any thoughts about which glissando you prefer? Let's ask that. Measure 28. Are you choosing to do the diatonic, playing E, D, C, B, or the chromatic glissando in measure 28? So let's take a quick poll. Give me find the react button on your screen if you can. And if you are doing diatonic, click the reaction now so I can get a little poll of how many people are doing diatonic. And if you're doing chromatic, click the reaction button so I can see if you're taking that one. Nice. Again, I think both options are good options. If you're doing the chromatic gliss in 28, you'll notice that the gliss would be 4 notes beyond the E. You could play them as, you could say that and do it on the 3rd beat of it. So the gliss is on 7, 8. You could do 7, 8, 9E and a 10. 7, 8, 9E and a 10, just with a little bit better enunciation. Would fit nicely there too. You could think of those as being 16th notes, which are really 32nd notes there. I see somebody typed into the chat. Let me see what that says real quick. I like chromatic gliss. Feels good under the fingers. Yes, Cheryl, I agree. It feels good to me too. All right, and then the other question that I have before... Oh, so any questions about those glissandi? Anybody want to cover anything? Feeling good? The other typed in question that we got was about flutter tonguing. So around the room real quick, how many of you already flutter tongue? And how many of you have tried flutter tonguing but don't feel good about it just yet? All right, so there are 2 common ways of flutter tonguing, and I'm going to talk about them both, but I definitely want to open up, because I know there's other performers and teachers in the room, to talking about the ways that you do it. I was taught to flutter tongue with a rolling of the R, ruffles have raging ridges. That was a potato chip commercial from when I was younger. At least it looks like, looking around the room, this many in this group might be of an age where they understand that saying. Many of my students don't. But having that forward rolling R. Again, air is fluid, and we need to have that fluid, consistent going through our mouth. And it creates kind of a hummingbird sound then when you do it. So try just blowing with that rolled R. And you could try that on a scale, but the notes that it looks like we only need to do it on a couple of notes. I'm guessing that the flutter tongue is good for that measure. Because it would be much harder to flutter tongue there. Or there's not super clear instructions, maybe the first of the two slurs. And I'll talk to the composer about that. Yeah, so I know, Ruth, it's hard to tell whether it's for all of the notes or not. Usually if a composer wants you to flutter tongue all the way through a measure, they'll draw some kind of notation following the flutter tongue to show that. But flutter tonguing only the one note feels a little bit weird to me. I'll let you all decide if you like to do that or not. Let's just take a second though and try to flutter tongue. So on a G with a forward rolling R, backing it up with a lot of air. And now let's take a second. I know that in the email it said, bring a glass of water. Cheryl says, are you using a consonant like H in front of the R? Yeah, it almost does feel like I'm saying like hur, hur. But sometimes I do start flutter tonguing with a tongue, like like with a T, because sometimes it needs to have an articulation. So I can do it without the H sound, Cheryl, but like a T sound too. So the H would be like I'm starting who and then rolling my R, and then but if I want to start with a clearer, crisper articulation, it can start with a T too. A few of those, my tone cracked because I wasn't ready to adjust my airstream for the amount of fluid that was going to come out. Any other questions before we talk about the other way of flutter tonguing?
With this way, it's a tur sound with your T?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
Usually I think that kind of depends on the nature of the music. If it needs a more of an emphasis to start the note, then I would use the T, but a lot of times I just don't.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's more comfortable for me not to.
Same.
But so that's maybe why it's my default. But back when I was playing like Zappa and some stuff that was crazy rhythmic, like the rhythm was the important part of some of that stuff. That if I did have an effect, I needed to use the tongues. Otherwise, the rhythm got a little bit lost too. So, the nature of the music has a lot to do with
I think I learned how to flutter tongue when I was playing the Iber piece for solo flute, and there's a and I think I had to use the tongue to get the emphasis on those notes.
Yeah, absolutely. On that second page of the pièce, right? Good.
Yeah. I start having nightmares now.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been a nightmare then, but that might be a good meaning for it's a good time for us to revisit that too. The other way of double tonguing is kind of like a gargling sensation or a growling sensation. I don't teach this. I've never taught this before because it's not something I feel comfortable doing in my own body. Although Robert Dick and I, we were hanging out at a convention a few years ago over some beers, and he indicated that he believes that the growling, the throat flutter tonguing, is superior to the rolling of the R. And Robert Dick is one of the masters of modern music, and so I definitely lean into the things that he says. And the reason he thinks the growling is superior is because, and he demonstrated quite nicely, he can speed up and slow down the rate of his flutter tongue, and he can increase and decrease the intensity of the flutter tongue when he's doing that growling shape. And for me, when I flutter tongue, it's just flutter tongue, right? But that makes flutter tonguing become more of an expressive element. Like our vibrato, when we first learn vibrato, it's kind of like either on or off. And then as we mature as flute players, we try other ways of making the vibrato bigger, smaller, faster, and slower to create an artistic expression with vibrato. Robert Dick is indicating that we can use flutter tonguing in the same way. And so I'm going to humble myself and embarrass myself and try to practice the gargling effect of flutter tongue with a glass of water. So I'm going to take just a little bit of water because I don't want to spit it up all over my computer. Well, all of the computers needs to be replaced anyway, but not all over my brand new flute. And it's going to be like like it's something going on and feeling it much further back. I'm going to lift my chin when I do it just to avoid spitting out. So the first time I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it and make sound like I'm humming. Just a sip. I accidentally swallowed it. Let's try it again. You know, we're learning together, right? So Renee just said she had nightmares of the EBRPS. I am having nightmares because when I got sick when I was a kid, my mom would always make us gargle with salt water. But they didn't really explain what gargling was. They just said, do this. And then I would end up drinking salt water when I was sick. And so, sad face, right? And I'm going to try the exact same thing, but instead of making the noise, instead of singing while I'm using it, I'm going to try to just have the airstream make bubbles. So I'm thinking about making tiny bubbles using interrupting the sound. And it feels like it's happening somewhere lower in the throat, but it's probably really happening up close to the uvula. All right, so can you all hear the tiny little bubbles? Maybe. Now, those of you who is there anybody out there who does the second version that I'm not yet comfortable doing, the version of flutter tonguing, that you can show us what that sounds like?
I can do the gargle with the water, but I have the trouble doing it on the flute.
Yeah, I just started trying to do the gargle with the water yesterday, so I by no means feel like I'm a master enough to do it. But I think that is the approach that most people who use that method first start with. So I'm in the same boat as you there, Cheryl. Well, speaking of water, in the same boat as you, feels okay with the water. It makes me want to swallow a lot still, but I haven't yet gotten that sound on the flute. Do you want to try? Just give us a sound so that way I'm not the only one who feels a little silly right now.
Okay, I can try it. Okay, this is with the H sound. I'm going to try it on a D. It took me 3 months to learn to do that, but I don't know about with that gargle. It just my tongue wants to do it.
Yeah, we have that habit that's stronger, and so of course our mind naturally wants to shift us back into the more comfortable feeling of a more developed habit. But thanks for trying. Yeah, I have the same thing where I can get it for just a second.
I don't know if it's even coming or not. Are you saying a syllable when you do it with the gargle?
I guess I'm kind of thinking of a K start, just because I don't know, because a G doesn't feel right. Yeah, it's definitely coming across as having some kind of flutter to it. When you first start, there's a little bit of resonance of singing, and I noticed that myself too while I'm just trying this. But yeah, it's starting to come out with a little bit of a flutter sound. So you know what? We're not such old dogs that we can't learn new tricks. Maybe this is something that you and I will just agree to practice together.
I've tried to do it, but it doesn't seem like I get anywhere with it, you know. And when I hear a person gargle and do it, it has a ripple effect. I can see why Robert Dick would like it and prefer it.
Yeah, and that also makes me think back to your statement earlier. You said when you first learned to flutter tongue, it took you 3 months. And when I first learned to flutter tongue, I think I was maybe a sophomore in high school. And I don't know how long it took me. It didn't matter because all I knew is that I wanted to be able to make that sound that the older kids were doing. And now with the gargling flutter tongue, I don't think I've ever given it 3 months of practice. I think I've given it 10 seconds a day for maybe 3 consecutive days and then just given up and said, I'll just do my R's because I need to get ready for this concert. So maybe what we need is that beginner mindset of, I want to do what the big kids do,
Yeah.
but apply it to that gargle.
But it was so
routine.
frustrating because some people just are silly, just silly personalities, and they just figure it out.
I know. It's always those of us who try to be overachievers that it takes a little bit longer for some of those fun things to actually happen, I think.
Yeah. And the thing I had to learn about that is that you don't, it's not a centered, focused sound.
Yeah, because if we're used to trying to think about that space just being open and resonant, and then all of a sudden it's percussive in some way, then that would change the center of our tone and just the way that we think about tonal centering too.
And even with the R's, I find it difficult. Like in the low register, I don't think I get a very good flutter in the low register, like from E on down, like I would like to get more edge on it. And even though
Yeah.
I'm very loose, I don't think it's coming out.
Yeah, it was losing its focus for sure. And maybe a little bit less loose is what you're going to need to help the top lip direct that. Because the air is coming out more sporadically. Just by nature, it's no longer a smooth column, but it's sporadic. So the top lip might need more toning to focus it down. I doubt mine's super clear now. When I used to be a new music performer, I would practice my long tones. And then I like chromatic Moise style long tones. And then I would repeat long tones flutter tongue, and then I would repeat long tones sing and play, and then I would repeat long tones flutter tongue sing and play. And so back in my late 20s, like I know that I could play a low B on the flute flutter tongue just fine, but since I don't perform that style of music very much anymore, I've kind of let some of those skills fall away.
So I don't quite understand what you were saying, maybe to do with the upper lip. Point it so that the air goes into the flute to do it.
Yeah, I think what's, and I'm not, your video feed isn't on right now, but what I'm guessing is happening just based on the way that it sounds is that the upper lip is losing its tone like the tone muscle tone and reacting to the air pressure changes rather than staying toned to focus the air.
I turned on the video.
Yeah.
Here's a G. I'm fine. It just goes away. I don't know. And I feel loose.
So yeah, for me, I have to imagine this top lip is like staying really close to my teeth to avoid it fluttering down. But I actually felt like I needed to aim the airstream up a little bit more as I went down than I would normally when I was playing those low notes.
Well, I felt my corners coming down more.
Corners coming down more? Yeah, so
Yeah, to do it, but it just doesn't come out. I don't know.
well, I think sometimes setting like small goals can be good. So like if you know that you flutter great to a G now and okay to an E, then let's like make a goal of doing it for a few days and then having a strong flutter down to an E flat. And then a couple of days later, say let's have a strong flutter down to a low D.
Yeah, I've tried to do that.
Yeah. So we were able to hear enough tone to know what pitches you were playing. It just wasn't as solid as the core tone was in the other parts. But I think you're well on your way there, Cheryl.
Yeah, well, it's just been one of those things. I mean, I have a very centered tone. I work very hard to keep it that way, to have a very centered sound, but especially, in high notes playing soft and stuff. That's what I work on really a lot, But I don't play as much stuff that requires flutter tonguing, but I like to be able to do what everybody else does,
Yeah. Me too. So maybe I'll rededicate some practice time to getting some flutter tongue throughout the range of my flute again. And I know that also reminds me, part of the reason why flutter tonguing long tones up high is I performed Gary Shocker's Coffee Duets with Gary Shocker several years ago, and I was playing second flute part, and he was on first, and had a flutter tongue up to a high D or something like that. And some college professor somewhere said, "How did you flutter tongue in the upper register like that?" And I said, "I don't know. I just practiced my long tones flutter tongue for a while." So this is the opposite, getting a stronger low tone with flutter tongue. I think if we just do two at a time, like half steps Moise style long tones, but do the flutter tongue while we're doing it, then maybe we'll find it. And for me, I'm also going to be applying this second syllable, the second version of it, the gargle, because I don't want to feel limited. I want to feel as a flute player, I might not always get all of the concepts, but I don't want to feel like any of them are beyond me. They might be beyond me today, but that doesn't mean they're going to be beyond me forever. So
I agree with you. I'm the same way.
let's just all of us keep being continuous learners there. All right, thanks for that, Cheryl. Any other thoughts from the group now? Any questions at all about this piece, measures, specific places? Or are there any, if you don't, well, let me ask that question first. Any questions from the group about anything in this piece that you want to talk about? Everyone looks satisfied. Would anybody else like to demonstrate any other part for either feedback or just for applause or just because you love it and you want to share music, which is a gift? Renee, yeah, let's hear some.
Okay, this is just to get over nerves of playing in front of people. Okay. I'm gonna start at 25.
Yay, bravo. All right, how did it feel to play in front of people?
My heart is pounding, but it was good.
Yay, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And one of the things that I like to remind people is our body's reaction to nerves is the exact same physical reaction to excitement. And the only difference is what we decide to call it. So that heart pounding could be because you were so excited to share music with us, right?
I perform all the time. I play with a flute ensemble and bands and everything, but for some reason, this group, I don't know, I find it intimidating. Everybody's so good.
Yeah, a lot of the people who post are quite good, and that's amazing. But the thing is, we get to celebrate everybody's success, regardless of what that success looks like. So one person's good might be completely note and rhythm accuracy, and another person's good might just be a lovely tone and random notes and rhythms all over the place, and another person's good might be just showing up to play one or two measures. So
I also like to represent for those of us with adaptive instruments. I had a bad shoulder surgery a few years ago, and I'm a small person. I can't play a straight head joint anymore. So I like to represent. We can still play well, even though our instruments look like baby instruments.
I love that you just shared that too, because I wasn't sure if you were playing on alto, and so it's
No.
and I think that's really great. I am on a mission to make adaptive head joints more and more accessible for students and adults of all ages. I would love it if every student flute. This is my personal soapbox. I would love if every student flute came with a curved head joint to begin, both so that way we don't think it's such a weird thing to see, but also so like those little kids stop having the habit of like holding their flute on their shoulder like this. And I want them to become something that can be found much more easily for adults. So
I would love it if manufacturers would make curved head joints that had more options. I mean, it's for a child, but I do what I can with it.
There are very few options for adaptive head joints right now. There are a couple of manufacturers that are still making them. And I heard a rumor. I'm not going to share this on the video recording. Remind me when I click end recording. I heard a rumor of something that I want to be able to bring up. So great playing. I do want to
Thank
point
you.
out just one thing, and I know that you were nervous, and this isn't about, and you're doing it not for feedback, but for the experience of playing in front of people. That reminds me, the rhythm in measure 31 is also a little hard to see.
Yes.
So we have one and three, one and three, two ku two, two ku two. If we're double tonguing, so let's just check out measure 31 real quick. Two ku two, two ku two, two 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 two. Renee, would you try that measure for us again, just one more time, just that way we can feel confident that we're all. On
Oh,
the same
sure.
page?
I think I was thinking the 16ths in my head, so I was going da 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 da. So I may
Yeah.
have rushed it a little bit. That was better, a little slower.
That was absolutely accurate too. And so there wasn't a question that you could do it right. Just wanted to make sure that everyone who is listening right now understands that rhythm too. It looks kind of tricky with the ties over there. So it's like it could be written as a 16th eighth note, 16th eighth note, 60 T K K T would fit that rhythm out
Like step up, but I think it's a Yamaha. It's a Yamaha curved head joint.